Здравствуйте, меня зовут Виктор Гавришов. Я президент компании VMG International Business Solutions, которая находится в штате Вашингтон. Я сегодня желаю представить вам с большим удовольствием новое интервью с Гари Лумисом. Сегодня у нас очень хорошие новости для любителей рыбалки. Сегодня мы дизайн вместе с Гари Лумисом и его командой новое удилище, которое от бланка до ручек и полный финиш сделано Гари для нашего рынка, для любителей рыбалки на территории бывшего Советского Союза. Я надеюсь, что вы получите удовольствие, пообщавшись с легендой в рыбалке Гари Лумисом. Желаю вам удачи на рыбалке.
Went down there to the Klamath River and using my old steelhead equipment, my winter steelhead equipment, which was a 8.5 foot or a 9 foot rod, and fishing 15-pound test and ½ ounce of lead in the winter. Found it very shortly after the fish started to come in and the water started to drop, because we're right here next to the Cascade Mountains, and they start to melt off about last of May and this type of stuff. As the water started to drop down and clear up, the fish just stopped biting that heavy line. So I decided that I needed something lighter. And you know, you take 10-pound test, you wrap it around your hands, you can't break it. But you do that, you can break it easy. So it's not the pull that breaks these fish off, it's the shock.
Or stress on the shock.
Yeah, shock. So when you take a rod that was developed and designed for 15-pound test, you put 6 on it, it don't work. I mean, those fish come up out of the water end over ends, just snap you off and send you home crying. So I decided that I'd go downtown and I bought a 9-foot fly rod. And I brought it back, and being a machinist, I drilled the end of it out. I added a handle on it. I cut the guides off. I put on some spinning guides, and I come out with a 10.5 foot shock absorber. And so I just started murdering the fish. You know, it was almost obscene, but you know, as long as I was doing it and they weren't, you know, it was okay. So it got to the point in time when the river really got low and I was probably clear down to 4-pound test line, that nobody was catching any fish, because they were still fishing that heavy line and this type of stuff. So one day I go down and I didn't want to, it just barged right in. So I just kind of stood there back and I talked and everything else. And pretty soon this one guy says, I says, do you mind if I make a couple casts? And they said, no, go ahead. So he steps back and I make first cast. I hook up the fish and I fight it and I get down. Walk back up to the hole, tie another hook on and bait it up, cast out, hook the second fish in the hole. There's only 2 fish in that hole usually, and do the same thing. Well, I picked up the fish and I started down the river, and this one guy says, hey, what are you doing? I said, I'm going home. No, he said, that's not what I'm saying. And you come down and you make 1, 2, 3 casts, catch your 2 fish, and down the river you go. Now, what are you doing different? And I said, well, I'm fishing lighter line. I get a better drift. I got a longer rod. I get more sensitivity. And with this long shock absorber and this type of stuff. And he said, well, where'd you get that? And I said, well, I made it. He said, well, where can I get one? I said, make one. And he said, well, I don't know how to make them. And I said, well, that's, you know, I don't know, I guess that's your
problem.
Yeah. But I did one thing smarter. I went home and taught my wife how to make them, and she was making more money than I was for a long time.
It's always exciting, Gary, because today is a market in the United States, and everybody know that fishing is addiction. And people take it not because it's just money making, it's a fun.
Oh.
And my partners in Russia and Ukraine contact me all the time, because my company, we deliver American-made fishing tackles. And we been successful because we deliver for people fun. And me and you don't have to explain. Those who go fishing like to spend time outdoor, but a question was always coming to me back and forth, how we can see old Gary rod.
Tell you a little story about it. About 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I was still with G. Loomis, and I went fishing with one of my buddies that is one of the better guides in this area, and he handed me a rod to free drift with, and I picked up the rod and I made a cast, and I turned to him and I says, what model is this? He says, Gary, that's the old 1141. I said, that ain't no 1141. I go look down on it, 1141. I said, well, maybe I'm not fishing enough. Maybe, you know, something's
missing.
Yeah, something's missing here. So I went fishing and I kind of forgot about it. You just kind of forgot about it. I went down fishing with another guide, which is one of our better guides, and he had taken the rod, chopped the rod off about here and let it full of lead. And I said, what are you doing? He says, oh, Gary, he said, the fish have changed the way that they're biting. So I got one of the blanks and I put it on the flex board and I flexed it. And I flexed one that was given to me when I was there 20 years, and then I flexed another one that was there 25 years. 9 inches difference between the two. Same model, same material, supposedly. So I went back, and there was one blank that never changed, and that was the IM6. Because the IM6, we designed it. That was at the time that, I mean, we would fish it at night, change it, cut the pattern, put it on the table. They would make the blank, make the rod, and I'd fish it the next night. So I knew that the IM6 was perfect. And we used the IM6 actions when we went to the other materials. So I got one of those put on it. It had flexed about 6 inches lower than the lowest of the other two, and the other one was 9 inches stiffer than that, the same two models. Well, what happens is the fish is facing upriver and you're going downriver, and that fish will pull over and grab that bait, and he'll munch on that bait. Now, as you're drifting down, it's bouncing on the rock, and sometimes it hangs up on the rock. Hangs up on the rock and it just goes like this. Well, when that fish grabs it and he grabs it and it hangs up like that, it goes like this, but it goes from the fish munching on it. So you've got to decipher in between the time that is it a rock or is it a fish, but not put enough pull on it that you pull it out of his mouth. So the rods were so stiff that they were just pulling it right out of their mouth, and so that's why they cut it off, put more weight on it so they could get the jerk quicker, but most times they're just jerking their eggs off because every time it hung up they would just jerk on it. So when I limbered it back up, they said, what am I going to do with these that I cut off and added lead to? I says, well, we'll extend them back out again and give it. But that's every different type of fishing. There's something there that how it runs your wobbler, how it runs your plug, all of these. A fishing rod has got to cast a line or a lure correctly, hook a fish correctly, fight a fish correctly, land a fish correctly, and come home in the same amount of pieces that it left in. You've got to do them all.
We know that you love fishing. You got in this business. But today we would like to introduce your new baby. And that baby is a new product called Edge. Those rods, they are not just carrying your blanks, but carrying your soil. This is what you would have yourself, and you go with that fishing. And question, what makes a good blanks? First of all, because we know that more than 50%, I say more than 50% in a good rod, it's a blank.
Yeah, without a good foundation, you're not going to have a good rod, and the blank is the foundation of the rod. That's where the whole soul of the rod comes from, is from the blank. And you know, before you ever even dream of making a rod, you've got to ask yourself, what do you want that rod to do? and you've got to put that into the blank. You know, in a rod, you have you know, the right length, and the length is very important for different type of things you're fishing. You have the right power, how much it takes to bend that rod, because of the lure weighting or the lead or whatever that you're doing, or the size of the fish that you're catching, and then the action of the rod, whether it's going to be an extra fast, moderate, or slow rod. All of them, for different type of applications of catching fish, you need them all. One fast action or modern action won't cut it. You got to have all of them to do all of these jobs. And that's probably why I have as good a rods as I have, and people love them, is because they really help me design them. I'm a real good fisherman. I'm not the best fisherman in the world for everything, but I'm a real good fisherman. And then having a mechanical background behind me, I can fish with these people and find out what they need as a tool to do a better job. So when you pick up one of my rods, it's going to have the heart and soul in it of the guy that's just like you and I, that really wants to talk about fishing, wants to go fishing, wants to be there all the time and live it. Throughout the whole world that I've fished with these people and designed rods until they said, don't change it. That's perfect. That's just what I wanted it to do.
When you cut your blanks, why it's different than anybody's? What do you think it makes it different?
Well, you know, there's a lot of things that go into it. But you know, you really have to work through your crew. And you've got to get people working in there that want to make the best blank. I just don't have people in that want a job. Those people, they take pride in everything they do. So when they turn around and get down and cut that pattern, I want to tell you, that material had better be cred, or they're going to reject it. It's going to be cut right, because it's their reputation that they're putting into that to being cut right. Goes right from the tacking to the cellophane. I mean, I've got a couple girls in there, when they don't even make a mistake. They're doing everything right, but the machine doesn't work just right, or the material isn't just right. They start crying because it's not perfect. Well, you know, when you have this kind of workers, I got to tell you, you can kind of go to sleep at night and get up in the morning and feel happy and this type of stuff.